Welcome to our webinar, Teach Anyone How to Do Anything with Scribe. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Friday, the 10th of February, 2023. Today, Meg and Reina from Scribe are here along with their colleague Nick to show us how to instantly turn any process into a step-by-step guide. And Meg is the product marketing manager at Scribe, in charge of communicating Scribe's values and product features. And before coming to Scribe, Meg was in sales and marketing at Salesforce and LinkedIn. Reina is the product manager at Scribe and in charge of releasing new features and ensuring Scribe is building the best product for its users. And before being at Scribe, Reina worked in product and strategy at Workato and Accenture. And Nick, unfortunately, I don't have an actual slide, so Nick's going to either tell us about himself or have Reina or Meg introduce him and tell us a little bit about his background as well. And so welcome, Nick, Meg, and Reina. It's great to have you all here with us today, and I'm going to hand things over to you and let you get started with your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug, and nice to meet everybody. We're so excited to be here and sharing a little bit more about Scribe. Let me go ahead and Doug, I'm going to boot you off screen share. Hopefully everyone can see our slides now. But as Doug mentioned, we are here to teach you how to teach anyone how to do anything with Scribe. And as we mentioned, I'm Meg, and I am joined here by Rana, my colleague, who's a product manager. She'll be joining us to do the demo portion of today's webinar. And we also have Nick, who's an engineer here at Scribe, but he's here because he's kind of taken on the duty of making sure that Scribe is accessible to everyone. So he'll be sharing a little bit more about our what we've done so far about accessibility and what we hope to do in the future. All right, so what will we learn today? We'll be in slides just for a few minutes while I do a little overview about Scribe. As I mentioned, Rana will take us over to the demo. Nick will do an accessibility overview, and then we'll have hopefully a bunch of time for questions, which we're excited to hear from you all. So what is Scribe? Scribe is a tool that automatically creates step-by-step guides for any process. And if you're wondering, how do we do that? We'll show you in just a few moments. But I wonder if anyone had a chance to actually check out Scribe or has been using Scribe before today's webinar. If you have, please let us know in the chat if you've had a chance to test this out. If not, if you feel so compelled, you can always sign up right now and actually play around alongside the webinar. This is the link for how you can sign up for our free tool. But let us know if anyone's had a chance to test it out. And I think before we dive into Scribe as a product, it's really helpful to zoom out and think about what you're doing today and what we actually replace. And if you're looking at this screenshot and getting shivers on your body, I don't blame you. This is likely what you're doing to create documentation today. This is a manually created Word document where you type out all of the step-by-step instructions as well as screenshots of tools. And you're likely doing this when you're trying to show someone how to do something in any technology. So if you're showing a student how to access something, if you're showing a colleague how to do a quick process or a trick in a tool that you all use, this is likely what you do. And it's super manual. I don't need to tell you that. And it takes a really long time. So we see that the average process document takes 15 minutes to create in a Word doc or a Google Doc. And alternatives to date before Scribe, if you didn't want to do it this way, you were likely just doing screenshots, screen recordings, taking Loom videos, stuff like that. But a lot of these really manual, time-intensive ways to just show someone how to do something. So Scribe came around and we created a tool that automatically creates these documents for you. And what we mean by automatically creates is that you turn on the Scribe recorder, you go through your process, you turn off the Scribe recorder, and that's it. We spit out this document as you see in the right screenshot, where we take everything that you clicked and typed, and we just turn it into a document for you. So there's no screenshots, there's no typing that you have to do. The only requirement to create a Scribe is that you just walk through the process as normal. So you can imagine that the time it takes to build these documents is exactly equal to the time it takes you to do the process. So in this exact example we're showing here, it took my colleague 2 minutes to create this scribe, and that was just how long it took to actually do the thing. So excited to show you a little bit more about that. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of different ways, and your mind already might be thinking of some different use cases for how you might actually use a tool like this. And these are like the 5 main use cases that we see. Things like new hire onboarding, you can imagine, are just so helpful when you're trying to show someone who's brand new to the tools and the organization. But for today's point, or today's purpose, we'll really be honing in on the tool adoption piece, which is, and in this, it says ensure employees. In your case, it might be ensuring your students that you're supporting are able to adopt these new tools quickly and correctly. But we'll be focusing on the tool adoption piece, but no limit for all the different ways you could use Scribe. I use Scribe all the time to show my dad how to do things on the phone, or a friend how to do something in even a personal tool that I use outside of work. So how does it work? We will show you this in the demo, but it's really, really helpful when you start using Scribe to think about the use of Scribe in 3 core workflows. The first is capture, then you edit, and then you share. So the capture piece is where all the magic happens. This is when I say you turn on the recorder. The recorder can be 2 different things. If you're recording a browser-based process, you can use our Chrome or Edge extension, which are free. I understand a lot of the tools that your students use are desktop-based, whether that's through a CD-ROM or just downloading something locally to the computer. Pro users have access to our desktop app, works the exact same way. And not to ruin thunder, but we'll give you a little promo code so you can try out the desktop app through the Pro license. So that's the capture piece. The edit piece is really up to you. We've got a lot of people who never edit their scribes, or if you are really into adding additional detail, there's a lot of different edit capabilities that we offer. And then, of course, you don't just create this documentation just for yourself. It's typically to share with somebody else. So we offer a bunch of different share capabilities that Rana will go into. But that's it. Just remember, capture, edit, share. It makes things very easy. So with that, Rana, I will actually pass it off to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Meg. Give me a second just to get my screen up. And perfect. Does everyone see a very important document with not a lot of content in it?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So let's jump in to see kind of how Scribe works its magic. So let's say I want to show someone how to change their page layout in Google Docs from portrait to landscape or vice versa. So like Meg mentioned, the first step here is to capture the process. So all I need to do is navigate to the Scribe extension, which I already have downloaded, and it's accessible at the top of my browser. So I'll open it up, click Start Recording. After that, I just go about the process in the same way that I do if I'm trying to show someone how to do something like Meg mentioned. So I'll open up my doc here. I'll open up a file, go to page setup, and then go into the orientation section, click landscape, hit OK. And then once I've gone through all of the steps in my process, I can go back to the extension to just stop recording. And this will create my step-by-step guide or my scribe. So it's just loading up here. And like Meg mentioned, the next step is to make any edits. So right here, you can kind of see that it's captured essentially what I was trying to do here. I might add in, in Google Docs. I can go in and update the icon to reflect that I was, doing a document or a process in Google Docs itself. I can also take a look at the auto-generated text, and I might want to add a little bit more context here. So I can say click file in the top left corner. And then also I can adjust the zoom levels of each screenshot to show more of the tool's navigational elements. So if I want to show more kind of context here, I can zoom out and that'll save. If I want to zoom in and just show a little bit of the UI, I can kind of zoom in more. I can also add in additional steps in between the steps that already exist. So let's go down here and add in a tip, and I'll just kind of add in my text here. So, say use landscape mode to more easily manage tables and charts. And then on certain plans within Scribe, I can also add annotations to my screenshots. So if I wanted to go in here and then kind of draw more attention to the orientation section, I can go to annotate, rectangle, and then just draw that right around here. And then I can also adjust the length of it and how it kind of looks. And also, if there's any private information or anything that's distracting, again, on the paid plan, I can also go through and redact certain parts of the the screenshot that maybe don't need as much attention. So I can just do that right here. So adding in a few blocks and then saving, and that's what that will look like. And all of these steps, again, like Meg mentioned, these are totally optional. I think the Scribe itself was ready to go when I had created it, but if you'd like to be more precise or add any additional information, edits are always a good way to go about it. So the final step here is to actually share my guide out. So if I want to share it directly with someone who does not have a Scribe account, you can actually just use link sharing, which will make this viewable by anybody who has the link. So I can copy it there. Let's pull it up in a new window. And this is what the experience is like for someone who is viewing a shared Scribe. So if I'm someone who is learning from this guide and I need a little bit more context, I can actually zoom in and zoom out to see more or less of the screenshot. And then going back to the Scribe that I created, there's actually a few more ways that I can share my Scribe. So if I want to put this guide in another tool, I can navigate to the Smart Embed and copy the snippet here. So I'll go into Notion as an example. So I can use the embed block. Just paste that link in, and you should see the guide that I had created in a kind of slideshow format. So I can click through and get to different steps that I'd already created in there. And then we can also adjust what this looks like to get that same scrolling view. So if I go in here, go into scrolling steps, I can copy that same link, and then right beneath it, just adding that in there. So you'll see that this is a little bit more familiar from that first view that we had, where it was just kind of scrolling through the same zoom in and zoom out. And in the share modal, there's also a few more ways to export it. I can also just download a PDF of that. So if I click on export, it'll spend a couple seconds generating the PDF, and this is what the file would look like. So you could download this, share it via email, any other kind of formats that make sense to you. And then there's also a couple more options with HTML and Markdown. So it's kind of a quick high-level overview of Scribe, super neatly formatted guides that would normally take me maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes even an hour to create, now ready to go in just a few minutes. So I'll hand it over back to Nick to cover a bit on how Scribe supports accessibility.
Yeah, before you do, Rana, actually, just going back to the embed example, because I think that's such an important thing that a lot of our users love so much about Scribe. And just to reiterate, so basically what Rana just did was she took the Scribe itself and she embedded it as an iframe into a third-party tool. So if you're not familiar with Notion, Notion is like a wiki tool that we use here at Scribe. But a lot of our users who work in the education space, if their students or their school districts have websites or have, whether that's like built through Google Sites or something else, if they have like FAQs or help centers or anything that your school districts or students use and are kind of used to go to for information, you can just put your Scribes directly in there, and it really helps the viewer just learn and not have to worry about utilizing Scribe or anything like that. They don't really know the difference. The information is just there for them to easily follow along in whatever third-party tool they're already used to using.
Yeah, that was a great call out. I think the most important thing is like, yeah, you can imagine right now, this is maybe a different tool or a new tool for some of you, but you can totally imagining it fitting in with any of the content that you already have or any of the places where students or other people that you work with kind of naturally just navigate to. And if they do, want to actually view the full viewer, like they could click into it, they could actually just remain in that same view. So there's kind of some options here to see the entire guide or the more compact view in the embed.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that our education users love about Scribe is that once they've created a Scribe for something, they could just use that to answer the same question over and over and over again. So if you've got multiple students that you support who use similar or the same tools and have the same questions, once you've created one Scribe, you can use it a million different times. And that's a huge value add, is just not having to repeat yourself anymore, frankly. And another thing that's really important to note is if you have the Scribe that Rana just created around Google Docs, if you have a similar but not the same question, or maybe you have a student who likes to do the process in a different way, or you support numerous districts or whatever it is where they have kind of the same but not the same exactly, you can easily copy your Scribes and customize them for different people. Or different use cases. So you're basically taking, let's say, 90% of the work that you've already done. You can easily copy the Scribe and add in a couple of steps via those add step actions that Rana walked through.
Yeah, so that was just it was literally a single click, and it created a copy of that same exact scribe with the same screenshots and the same kind of tip that I had even included in there. So it makes it easy to kind of customize and modify with pretty minimal effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Lyle had a great question around some of the iframes. Nick, that's probably a great transition. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides again. And then Nick, if you want to come up and actually talk about Scribe's current stance on accessibility and other things we're considering.
Yeah, maybe I'll answer that question first. We actually haven't tested iframes for accessibility. I know the steps within the iframes, the images have alt text, they're keyboard navigable, but we haven't actually, or I should say me, I haven't tested actually like embedding an iframe in a page and then navigating through that page. So I guess we're sort of relying on the page that we're embedding into to be accessible, which is, I guess, a next level of challenge for us. Overall, at Scribe, kind of what we're thinking about in engineering is supporting screen readers and keyboard navigation. And it's a work in progress. We are trying to make sure that anything new that's built conforms to these and is accessible, works well. At the same time, we're trying to backfill existing features and make sure that everything across the entire app is accessible. It's a focus of engineering at the moment, and basically what we're trying to do is solve for vision impairment and a mobility who's thinking around using the app with a screen reader and keyboard navigation. It's something we check on regularly. Yeah, so kind of the closing point is that it's an area of focus for us. And if you hit a bug, like, let us know. We treat it like any other bug. It's a serious problem. We'll fix it ASAP. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at with accessibility.
Yeah, and also we just wanted to let you know, Scribe is still a relatively young company. We've only been around for about 2 years. So we're building fast and furiously. And as Nick mentioned, accessibility is a huge moment, or just a very important thing for us. So if you have ideas on how we can continue to improve, we are all ears, because we are really growing at the time.
Yeah. And Lyle, to answer your question too, we're super happy. For us, this is like a quick test after, and we can totally just make sure that it works, or kind of where we are at this, and just follow up with you afterwards if you're interested in kind of learning more. So happy to take that on our end.
Yeah, and we love hearing kind of accessibility challenges. It's great for us to just have another perspective, and we're trying to nail it. We want to make a great accessible product. We want it to feel good for everybody to use. So that's sort of the end goal.
Cool. All right. Well, last slide here, and then we are happy to answer any additional questions that you all have. But we wanted to give you 2 months of Pro for free. There's a lot of things that are great about Pro, but I think for your audience, particularly, access to the desktop recorder will be huge. So when you sign up for Scribe, you just sign up, go through the normal process, and then there'll be an option to upgrade to Pro. And you can go ahead and use the promo code N.O.A.T as in the little promo code field, and you'll automatically get 2 free months of Pro. And that's it for content that we had to prepare. Let us know. Anyone have any questions?
All right, that's great. That was a wonderful tour. I'd love to go back and step through it, pun intended. But I just wanted to, before we get started into questions and that, I just wanted to clarify one question that was asked in the chat, and Meg, you answered it. Just for those who may not be able to access the chat directly, I just wanted to bring that up. And Maris had asked, can someone unredact the information? And your response was, no, that once a screenshot has been redacted, it can't be unredacted by anyone. So I just want to make sure that that was out there. And Russell is just confirming that the code is N.O.A.T Scribe. But I think I might have mistyped it in there, that there's only one S. Is that correct, Meg and Rana?
Oh, sorry.
N.O.A.T.
I did it wrong right there. It is N.O.A.T Scribes.
Okay, so just one N.O.A.T.
Yep, exactly.
Such a valuable code. We can't just let it out there right away. We have to. There's a test you have to pass, and Russell, you passed that test. So, all right. And by all means, I keep putting the questions into the chat. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to be really prim and proper and minding your manners. Otherwise, unmute and we'll get you on here to be able to ask by voice if you'd like. And Raina has just put in $29 per user per month in response to the question about from Linda about how much is Pro. And John is asking, I make so many mistakes. How difficult is it to edit these? So,
Raina, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been going through and just writing up responses, but yeah, for John, so editing is relatively easy. I didn't go through that for the sake of our exercise. My Scribe was pretty simply generated, so I didn't need to go in to make any changes. But you basically are able to go in and delete steps, rearrange them, copy them over, move them around. Also, if you are in the middle of recording and you realize like, oh no, like I have a window open, or I might need to rearrange some stuff to make sure I capture exactly what I need, we also have a pause functionality. So even though you're actively in the recording and the Scribe is being generated, you can pause so that you can go through and make your adjustments and then continue recording from where you left off. So those are a couple of different ways that we make sure that, we're not capturing super, I guess, like unnecessary steps or clicks or that kind of thing. Perfect.
okay, perfect. Thanks for that. And you, as you say, you were. I hadn't scrolled down. This is the trick with chat questions, and that is always the trick. Lyle's got his hand raised, so instead of give me a chance to catch up on the chat here, Lyle, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Doug. Thanks, everyone. Really neat product. I'm intrigued. I'm curious. From a UDL perspective, have you? And forgive me if I missed this. I don't fully pay attention to anything. Have you made it so that audio recordings can be part of this? Have you made it so that video components can be added, like a person's face of some kind or something like that? So those two pieces, and then if you could talk a bit about the licensing, if there's a team pack option for departments to be able to utilize it, and if you can talk a bit about who's the competition in this space for you.
Perfect. Meg, do you want me to take the first question? Okay, perfect. So for audio and video, that's actually perfect timing. We also had a sync on it internally about what audio could potentially look like for Scribe. I would love to learn a little bit more about how you're thinking about audio and video. The ways that we've kind of been thinking about it internally, nothing concrete yet, has been basically allowing users to provide more context to their scribes. So obviously there is the text in the screenshot format. We understand that there are different methods that users learn from and different ways to kind of communicate that. And so the way that we've been thinking about it is, allowing users maybe in between steps to add audio snippets or do something along the lines of speech to text in order to update the step descriptions that you'd seen, the like click here, then, click this button, that kind of thing. And then from a video standpoint, this is also something that's newer for us, that we have a couple of different formats of sharing scribes, which makes audio and video a little bit more complicated if it's through a PDF or, if it's through embed. So it's something that we're considering. I think we just don't have a super strong stance right now on exactly what that could look like. So, I mean, I'd love, if you don't mind, Lyle, just sharing a little bit more about how you're thinking that could play into Scribe, seeing the demo. It'd be super interesting to hear your take.
Sure. Yeah. I think a lot of us, we've created sort of video tutorials for our students in some respects, where we record our screen through Zoom or some sort of screen sharing tool, and then it gives the students the steps. But I'm thinking of layering it with Scribe, where you could have rich annotations as part of this, bubble ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's sort of one avenue I'm thinking around video. And then for the audio, yeah, if you could just lay a track of audio across a bunch of still images, I think that might be another UDL component to consider. And then something you raised made me think, if I'm creating a video for a particular user and it's going to have confidential information in it, can I share it so it's just available to that one user and they can't share the link to someone else? So I could make it just their email, etc. I didn't see that in the steps if you did show it.
Yeah. So you're right. So I purposely didn't kind of go through all of the different sharing permissions and options. So the link sharing is the most permissive. Anybody who has that link will then be able to access the content. If you would like to share it, I think a little bit more locked down, what you can do is individually share with certain email addresses. Like you could actually, put in the email address of the student, and so only they have access to it. No one else that they share it to will, unless they are actually added to the document. That is also possible. The only thing with individual sharing is that you would require them to have a Scribe account, which is again free for them to sign up. They don't necessarily need to be within your team to see it. They just have to have a Scribe account. And then on Teams, I think maybe Meg, if you want to go through billing and then the competitor part of Lyle's question, but just to talk about how the teams are structured within a Scribe org, you can have multiple folks within your same Scribe team. And there are sharing levels that are kind of limited to basically it's private. It's only you can see it. Only your team can see it, or it's link accessible. And then in between that, there's also the individually sharing option all throughout. So you can kind of set the general permissions that you would like on your Scribe document, but then you can also still individually share with specific folks. So,
Yeah. And then one layer on top of that, same as Rana just walked through the viewing permissions, you can also designate certain people to have edit permissions as well. So if you were to collaborate on a certain Scribe with someone else, you could do that and open that up just for that person. Another thing that you brought up, Lyle, before we move on, really great tip for people who have users who do really like the video component, and that's helpful for them to learn via video. We have a lot of Scribe users who do both video creation as well as Scribe creation actually at the same time. So you can imagine you would record your screen and turn on the Scribe recorder, and then you're basically walking through the process, completing the video and the Scribe recording at the same time. And when you're done, you've got two outputs, but it took you, half the amount of time since you're doing it at the same time. So little hack that some users do. To talk, Lyle, about the team licensing options. So as Rana mentioned, you can have teams in Scribe. The way that the pricing works is keep it simple. It's a per user pricing. So if there were 5 of you who wanted access to create Scribes, you would each just sign up for a Scribe. If you wanted to be on the pro license, all 5 of you would be paying that $29 a month. Or if you billed annually, you'd be paying $23 per month. And then you can consolidate all your billing so that just one person is in charge of that for your team. Any questions on that?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just wanted to ask if it's possible to make it more complicated in the future, if we wanted to have different pricing models than just that simplistic one.
If like Scribe would be open to it at a company level.
Well, I'm just thinking like
dollar pricing. I forgot. Got a lot of Canadians on here.
Yeah.
So $29 US dollars per month, or 23 US.
Yeah, that's like 600 Canadian dollars. It's ridiculous. But no, if we can look at an option where we could have like a license that's transferable, right? So if a student needs it for a semester, we could loan it out to the student and then pull it back at the end of the semester. Things like that. If we can explore those in the future, we can talk more offline about that if you want.
Yeah. You should have access to our emails. It's very simple. It's just our first name @scribenow.com. So you can contact Rana and I that way. But I did want to touch on the competition piece that you asked about. So we think about kind of the competitive landscape of our users in kind of like, I would say 3 main buckets. The first is the manual documentation, as that's what most people are doing today. That's kind of the status quo using Google Docs or Word docs. The second would be people like you, Lyle, who are actually doing this type of training over video. So any kind of screen recording tool you might be using, or Loom is a big one that folks use. And then the third space that we sit very squarely in are these automatically created step-by-step guides. So there's us, we're Scribe, we're the main player in this space. There are 2 other companies that, if you want, feel free to check out. They're named Tango and IRAD, and they do kind of similar step-by-step guide generation, and also via a Chrome extension.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all those answers. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
I wanted to touch on Aspen's question as well, and then I can also just read it out so everyone on the call is familiar with what we're talking about. So our question was, what are the limitations regarding the programs that Scribe would work with? I could see how it would be easy with Google Docs, but will it handle something more complex like video editing programs? So the extension recorder will then capture anything that is, any tabs that you have open, if that's Gmail, if it's anything in, Google Suite, or if you're in kind of any other tool in your browser. That's kind of the limitations there. If you're recording on the desktop app, it'll actually capture any of the applications you have open on your desktop. So you can switch between windows, and anything that is visible there will be captured. So specifically with video editing, I don't think we've really tested it out there. So I guess my inkling is that the step descriptions might not be as descriptive, and that like it says specifically like, click into like this trim option or something like that. It might just be a little bit more generic in the click here, but the screenshots themselves will still capture everything that you do see on your desktop app. So, and with the Pro trial as well, with the code, this is something that you could totally try out with the apps that you use in your day-to-day. Perfect.
Okay. And there was one question earlier in the chat from Luke asking about the PDFs that the Scribe creates. Are they created as tagged PDFs?
Let's see. Sorry, might have missed that one. In terms of tagged PDFs, do you mind sharing a little bit more about what that means?
By all means, unmute yourself, Luke, if you're able. If not, I can try and handle that. No. Or if we have any accessible document experts on the call here that want to take it instead of me trying to butcher it. No. Okay. Everybody
I
wants
just Googled
to see
it. I can say that we don't do that, but we are looking at overhauling our PDF exports, and this is definitely something to consider. This is awesome. Love learning something new here.
So Nick, the best way to learn something is to teach something, or is to teach it. So you just learned this, so teach it back to us. What is a tagged PDF? And if you need to create a scribe for this, we'll wait.
Yeah, so tagged PDFs have some hidden markup in them that make them more accessible. So for people using screen readers, it works better.
That's probably a much more succinct explanation than I could have given Nick, and that. So congratulations, you got a future in accessibility there. So all right, there was a comment here from you, Meg, responding to Sabrina about pro users can create scribes on mobile phones and tablets. Did you have anything more to add to that? Because I think a lot of our students might be able to find that very useful, as well as I'm thinking us as the assistive technologists being able to use it to capture things on phones and tablets.
Yeah, and it could not be a better day for Sabrina to ask that question, since we just launched this feature to all pro users today. But essentially what it does is it allows you to create scribes on mobile phones and tablets. And you do that just by accessing scribehow.com on your mobile phone or tablet browser. And then once you sign into your account, you'll see a little plus icon in the top right corner. It is not a mobile app that you have to download separately. It's just accessing Scribe on your mobile browser. And it's not a perfect solution, but it's pretty dang good in the meantime. Essentially what you do is it will prompt you to take screenshots manually. So on a tablet, that would be, using the outside buttons, take screenshots of every step of the process, and then you upload them on your mobile browser. We have a really nifty way of you actually, you manually tap on your screen where you would actually want the person to tap. It will apply the click target, which is that orange dot that you saw in the screenshots. And you'll just apply the orange dot to each screenshot in the mobile process, and then it will turn it into a scribe. And you can access that scribe on mobile or on your desktop. If you're accessing it on your desktop, it will just be those kind of longer screenshots, but the scribe viewing experience is basically the same.
And one quick thing to note as well, obviously taking screenshots on an iPad or an iPhone, it might be kind of long. There might be so many that you have to like manage and order. So we automatically order them based on the timestamps in which you'd taken them. So you don't have to worry about like selecting it, like 1 through 10 in a certain order and trying to manage all of that. So it makes it a little bit easier on anything that's on a different device.
Okay, great. It's exciting that that came out just recently. That'll open up a lot of other opportunities and use case scenarios for Scribe. So that's great. Russell is curious on whether or not a totally blind screen reader user could create scribes independently. And secondly, what about reading scribes created by someone else?
Nick, you got that one?
I can take this one. Yeah. So at this point, no on the creation. We're really limited by the rest of the internet on this one. The Scribe extension is simple enough that it's semantic HTML, so it's kind of inherently accessible, but we can't rely on every other website to be accessible for that. A totally blind user using a screen reader viewing a Scribe, that should work. Images have alt tags. Everything's keyboard accessible, keyboard navigable. I'd expect that to work. If it doesn't, we'd want to hear about it as soon as possible. But I do check on the experience with a screen reader on occasion just to make sure it's working.
You mentioned that there's alt text created for the PDF scribes. Is that an AI generated?
It's not at this point. We basically assume that the step description is describing the image. So it's a little repetitive at this point. We're looking on how we can either do a better job parsing out the relevant part of the step description to have a more concise alt tag in the image, or using an AI to basically categorize it and figure out what it is. That's going to be tough that it's a screenshot rather than like a picture of a man with a dog in a field. It's just a little tougher for an AI to pick up specifically what's going on, but it's something we're looking at now.
Is there an ability for the user creating the scribe to edit the alt text?
That's also on the roadmap, but not at this point.
Okay.
Via an HTML export, actually, because it's HTML and each image has the alt tag with the default text. That would be editable, but not within like this Scribe in product viewer.
Okay. All right. And Luke has made a comment here in the chat that if the text conveys the information in the image, it's likely redundant to add alt text to the image. That just repeats the information to a screen reader. So,
yeah, I agree with that. We're actively looking at a better solution for that.
Okay. So a lot of these things are tricky because you've got a product that is trying to bring a whole bunch of stuff together and create another product. And yeah, I'm glad to hear, Nick, that and I'm quite happy that you're here with us today so that you can address these and be able to hear this feedback, because it's making these products totally accessible. It's tricky.
Yeah, tricky. And I'm learning. So this is a great opportunity for me to learn from people who have more background in education in this than I do. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and Luke is just it's kind of siding with you there on the side of including, but it's something to consider. So as you're saying, you're moving forward with it. It's you're going to be working on that and taking the feedback. The next question here in the chat is from Lyle. If it would be neat if you could add prompts to remind creators to include accessibility components, or I'm going to add in for Lyle another way of looking at that as an accessibility checker for the final product. So, and then Aspen's asking, do the PDFs have a heading structure of any sort?
Mm-hmm. So I can take that one. For PDFs, what you saw in the generated one, I know it was pretty quick, is just the title of the scribe. There is also some additional information that you can include in your scribes, like a description, and then there's also some information about who created the scribe when it was created. So all of that information isn't fully reflected in the PDFs, but we are working on kind of some consistency work so that what you see in the Scribe is also what you see in the PDF. But I'm curious for Aspen if there's anything else that you'd like to see that is not included in the Scribe, like any additional information that you have on your end that you would like to be a part of PDFs. Because we've also seen some requests for like a custom header or a custom footer in which you can add additional information. So yeah, I'm not too I think well-versed in terms of the requirements for what PDF might include. So I would love to hear if there is something specific you're looking for.
Yeah, sure. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about the documentation that I write for our department, and our alternate text process is actually, I think, 23 to 25 pages long, and that's mostly text. And if someone were to try to read that with a screen reader, I would want true headings in the document so the navigation would be easier for that person.
I see. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, yeah, today, unfortunately, we don't have anything that supports that, but something like custom headers and footers has definitely been a request that we've heard for various reasons. So that I think that totally lines up with it, and something that we're considering doing. So yeah, appreciate the feedback.
Want to interject and clarify something for some of those in the audience, that there's two in the world of accessibility, accessible documents and such. There's two types of header structures. There's the header and the footer in the document, and then there's the headers of like heading levels of 1, 2, 3, and things like that. And those heading levels are what quite often a screen reader user will be able to, through keyboard navigation, keyboard shortcuts in the screen reader, they'll be able to jump through those heading levels and be able to skim through a document and go to the major sections of looking at heading ones, and then go, and there's other document structures in there, like links that you can just list all the links that are visible in the document. So the heading levels and content in the documents from a screen reader perspective, it can get quite complex.
Yeah, apologies. I misunderstood the feedback there. So I think within the, I mean, we haven't run it through, I think, a screen reader for PDFs, but basically the way that you see Scribes structured within the viewers themselves, of having some sort of heading, and then you have kind of the step levels, right? You've got like step 1 with this kind of text, and then you got step 2. So all of that formatting is there. I don't know if there's any other additional kind of heading formatting that we include with PDFs like that. That's something that's not there today, but I do expect we also have section headers within Scribes that do translate over to PDF. So you can imagine, like, if you had different subsections that you'd wanted to kind of preface different parts of your Scribe, different steps, like you know, right before step 1, you wanted to kind of preface that with, this is like section 1, and then you've got a couple of steps in there moving to the next section. So that does translate over to PDF, but I'm not sure if how that would work with the screen reader. So I might lean on Nick on responding over that.
Yeah, looking at this website I'm looking at for about tagged PDFs, it looks like tagged PDFs are basically made up of like HTML markup. So it doesn't seem like it's a big leap for us to move that direction, but maybe in the meantime, a potential path for people who are looking for this is to use our HTML export and grab that HTML from there and then run it through a conversion tool to turn it into a tagged PDF as like a stopgap measure. But it's something that I think we should be doing.
Nick's thankful for this feedback, and his to-do list is exploding, and he's also second guessing his career choice here.
No, I love it. I'm very firmly in a job. Lots of work to be done.
Yes, actually, that's true, Nick. Is you're welcome for us helping you with job security.
Appreciate it.
All right, so keep the questions and comments coming in through the chat if there are any others, as well as by all means raising your hand or unmuting your microphone so that we can get you on by voice if you'd like. And just as I kind of see if there's any other questions and such coming in here, just put this out to the three of you and to the wider team at Scribe, is that our members have the diverse experience and knowledge of the actual technologies and the way that individuals with disabilities use them, as well as the way that they have to be taught. And at the same time, a lot of our members here and a lot of us as professionals, we are those same people using that technology as people with disabilities. So it's not, it wouldn't be unheard of for us to offer a focus group for you guys to supply the tools, us and us to use them and be able to provide feedback in more of a formal way, in kind of like a beta test or a focus group or any of whatever labels you want to put on that. So I put that out to you. If you're interested in that as an organization, let me know, and I'm sure that we can round up a few people that would help be able to take this software and put it through its paces and give you some feedback, help you test some of the things that you want to implement and the integrations and the updates and such. So
yeah. As an organization as well, we love hearing from our users and working directly with them. A lot of our feature launches are ones that we, while things are in development, we kind of work with them hand in hand to run it by them, gather feedback, incorporate that before we actually launch. So I think this would be a super fantastic resource for us as a team. And hopefully your group kind of feels the same way and kind of feeling heard of what requirements are important to them. So yeah, would love to kind of set something like that up afterwards.
Perfect. Yeah. Let's take that offline, as they say. But definitely, that's I can see a lot of opportunity here for Scribe to grow, Scribe to become more accessible, and for us to be just a little happier at the end of the day by not having to cut and paste drawings and diagrams and redo the videos like Lyle has to do all the time. And so, all right. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in or hands raised. So just one last final opportunity for that before we kind of end for the day. The information that the three of you have brought to us here today, personally, it's invaluable. It's seeing this tool in action. I was telling you before we started today that I kind of made the decision not to get too deep into it until after today, and kind of wished I had of earlier, but now I'm glad I didn't with all these tricks. So still on the fence about that, but I can hardly wait to start using it for some of the stuff that I have to do, as well as others have mentioned their upcoming documentation, and we're all kind of coming to the or not all of us, but those of us in a lot of the higher education environments, we're coming to the end of our education year, and we're going to be looking at revising tutorials, creating new stuff for next year. So this is going to be a fantastic tool to kind of enter into for that. And Chris has asked, can we use the promo code without submitting credit card information?
Yeah, so I just said, unfortunately, we use Stripe as our payment system, and it is a requirement to add in your credit card information to go through the billing process. But if you do forget to cancel in time, just email us at support@scribehow.com, and we can issue you a refund for any months you may have been accidentally charged.
Okay, perfect. You guys are just right on the answering in the chat, which is great. And then I don't scroll down and keep up with the fact that you've answered them. So thank you. So that's great. All right. Any other last minute questions, comments from anybody in the audience or from any of the three of you?
I just added our emails in the chat. It's for Meg and I, it's our first names, but for Nick, it's nick.rosen. But if you have any questions, thoughts, like we'll respond to our emails. We're very actively, sourcing feedback. So feel free, and don't feel like it's this big formal thing. Just, directly reach out, screenshots or anything, that you want to share with us directly, and we'll have some conversations there. No, we have two Nicks. Nick Rosen joined after Nick Churcher, so that's why he's different.
Second Nick problems.
I think that Nick is the only similar. I think the only person at the company with a double name. I think everyone else.
Ryan.
Sorry?
2 Ryans and 2 Nicks.
Oh, 2 Ryans. You're right.
Which is crazy because we have a 38-person company.
And just to put it out there, they do have one Canadian employee, I'm told, in the Toronto area. So we have met the Canadian content here for today through all the regulatory bodies. We've met the Canadian content requirement. Yes, Linda, we'll make sure that those emails are shared with the replay information as one of the resources. I always make sure that the presenters' emails are there for you so that you can get in touch with them. And Lyle's asking just update us or return. And yes, I invite you back to do updates with us if there's a new version, accessibility features, and that's in addition to what we were talking about a few moments ago about any kind of focus groups. By all means, we're always happy to have you back. And yes, so I think that was everything. There was something I was going to mention, and it's totally gone. So it must have been totally 100% important. So hopefully it'll come back to me. But either way, it's been fantastic having the three of you here with us today, showcasing Scribe and giving us another tool in our. Paul has just asked quickly, the prices are in US dollars. Yes, Paul, the prices are in US dollars. So yeah, it's we've now got another tool in our toolbox. The beauty of this tool, slightly unique from other tools that we generally have, is this one is going to be primarily for us to help those we support instead of a tool that we give to those who we support. Although I'm sure that there's going to be some time and opportunity for your tool to be put in the hands of those we support as well. I can already think of a couple dozen, well, maybe not a couple dozen, definitely a couple, that of times we can get it out to our students and that so they can make use of it to help support their disability needs. So no doubt we're benefiting from this as well. So thank you again for sharing today. Your guys' support of the assistive technology community, those with disabilities and accessibility in general, it's been showcased here today, and I appreciate that. On behalf of all of us, thank you. Keep us updated. And with that, I just want to wish everyone here today a great day, great weekend. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you can't spell education without AT.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend. Bye.